He was known for introducing and popularizing the bass clarinet in jazz. What else did he play? Alto, baritone, and tenor saxophones, flute, and even piccolo. He was a bandleader, composer, and sideman, known for his unique improvisational style, dissonance, and wide intervals. Genre? Free jazz, avant-garde jazz, and post-bop. A truly unique jazz player. Today, I'll tell you about the one and only Eric Dolphy. Eric Dolphy was born in Los Angeles in 1928 into a middle-class family that deeply valued education and music. As a child, he played saxophone, clarinet, and eventually the flute. From elementary school and onward, he played in every band he could get into. He was known for his talent, as well as practicing obsessively, as sometimes he practiced for 8 hours a day. Later, he studied music at the University of Southern California. According to his family, he wasn't actually planning on becoming a jazz musician.
He wanted to play in the symphony. As a matter of fact, he wanted to play with the Burbank Symphony, for which he was qualified. But at that time, blacks were not allowed to play in the symphony.
Eric didn't fit the stereotype of the common jazz musician. He didn't drink, smoke, or take any substances. One of his former band members described him as terribly clean. Theo Lowenday, a saxophonist and composer, once said, "I had the impression that he was a health freak, that he took music seriously and lived very differently from the likes of Charlie Parker." Not everyone enjoyed Eric's playing either. According to jazz historian Michael D. Ruder, there was a so-called blindfold test on a Dutch radio show called VARA, where people would listen to different recordings and talk about them in an open-minded way. When they played one of Dolphy's recordings, saxophonist Tinus Bruun said the following: "Christ, please stop it. Give my 7-year-old a clarinet and he could do that." Now this might seem harsh, but I think that the criticism is actually understandable. His music was, and still is, quite different, and at times sounds completely chaotic. His techniques were the reason for all of that. He used wide intervals and extended technique to recreate animal and human sounds. I personally never heard of these terms before, so let me explain to any of you who don't know either. Wide intervals refer to the distance between two notes in pitch, specifically the gap between them. In jazz, wide intervals are used to surprise the listener or to create tension. You might have noticed how many of Eric's works have this tendency to go up and down in pitch unpredictably. That's how wide intervals sound like, and that's why he used them. Extended technique, in short, is a way to play a musical instrument in a way it wasn't supposed to be played, thus creating unconventional sounds and expanding the possibilities for expression. For example, using a guitar pick to grind against the strings of an electric guitar creates this harsh sound that has been used in many rock songs. If you have ever listened to Rage Against the Machine, you might have heard the guitarist Tom Morello use this technique, for example on the song Bulls on Parade. But let's get back to jazz. Later, after hearing Dolphy perform live at a cafe in Amsterdam, Tinus Bruun completely changed his opinion on Eric's playing, calling his music simply fantastic. Eric played in local Los Angeles bands, including Roy Porter's group in the late 1940s, but still in relative obscurity. In the 1950s, Eric joined the army, where he would continue playing and studying music, now in the Navy School of Music. After leaving the army, Eric stayed pretty much unknown until 1958, when he joined Chico Hamilton's quintet. That gave him the exposure he needed to enable him to tour internationally. In 1960, he moved to New York. There, he connected with some of the greatest names in jazz, like John Coltrane, Booker Little, and Charles Mingus. Together, they created some iconic recordings, including Charles Mingus Presents Charles Mingus, Evenings at the Village Gate with Coltrane, Eric Dolphy at the 5-Spot live recordings with Booker Little. These sessions show just how far Dolphy was willing to push the limits of jazz and improvisation. Sadly, Eric's life was cut short. He collapsed while on stage in West Berlin on June 27, 1964, and died 2 days later, on June 29th. He was just 36. There's still some uncertainty to what caused his death. Different sources say different things, but according to my research, the most common explanation is that he died due to undiagnosed diabetes. Allegedly, after Eric was sent to the hospital, the doctors administered an insulin shot, since they did not know that Eric was diabetic. They thought that it was just another case of an overdose. Ted Curson, as previously mentioned, another jazz musician, said the following after Eric's passing. That really broke me up. When Eric got sick on a date in Berlin, and him being black and a jazz musician, they thought he was just a junkie. Eric didn't use any drugs. He was a diabetic. All they had to do was take a blood test, and they would have found it out. So he died for nothing. They gave him some detox stuff, and he died, and nobody ever went into the club in Berlin again. That was the end of that club. After his death, his friends and bandmates recorded songs in tribute, most notably Tears for Dolphy by Ted Curson and So Long Eric by Charles Mingus. In an interview for the documentary Last Date, Charles Mingus said, quote, "Usually when a man dies, you remember, or you say you remember, only the good things about him. With Eric, that's all you could remember. I don't remember any drags he did to anybody. The man was absolutely without a need to hurt." End quote. Now Eric is buried in Los Angeles. His headstone reads, "He lives in his music." I would be lying to you if I told you that everyone should have Eric's music on their playlists, as it is not for everyone. But I think that his music deserves at least a try, as he did pour his soul into his work and it clearly shows. I will leave a few tracks for you to listen to after this presentation, but for now, thank you so much for listening.